I think there should be a law that everyone should be in a relationship. At least once. There's a law that you have to go to school, but quite frankly, you learn more in a relationship. The Swedish poet, I'm not quite completely prepared here. The Swedish poet is, yeah. That's not the Swedish poet. The great Swedish poet. Tegnér said that if you want to learn a foreign language perfectly, the only place you can do it is in bed. And if you want to understand someone but can't, attraction can make you try again. And learning a foreign language, it has now been shown, can prevent Alzheimer's. But even if there's love and understanding in a relationship, sometimes there's conflict. And then you can learn. And what you learn is not to use logic. You've already done something to make someone else upset. To say that that behavior was rational will not help. If Germany would invade Denmark and the Danes would get upset, German explanations would not help. It would be, as they say, to add insult to injury. Es ist gemütlicher auf diese Weise. Or if Sweden would invade Denmark and the Danes would get upset, Swedish explanations would not help. Vi vill att ni också ska få lov att ha systembolag. Or if Norway would invade Denmark and the Danes would get upset, Norwegian explanations would not help. But Norway won't invade Denmark. Why would Norway want to invade Denmark? And Denmark, the Danes, they don't need the Swedish system of state liquor stores, because in Denmark you can buy booze at petrol stations. And Denmark has proved long ago that it can be cozy all by itself without the assistance of foreign guests. So no right-minded nation would invade Denmark for any of those reasons. Now, when Denmark goes to war in the Middle East, it's for the sake of democracy, which is a great reason. And if Denmark would invade China, it would be even greater. Because there are so many Chinese waiting to get democratized. But that Denmark let the Nazis walk right in 1940, that's a bit surprising. Because the Nazis were not one bit democratic. But maybe we could see Denmark's war in the Middle East as a sort of compensation. Denmark couldn't help itself in 1940, but now it's helping others. What Denmark couldn't do 70 years ago to defend democracy, it's now doing abroad. And of course, it's much better to do something late than not at all. But back to the subject. Let's say we've learned not to escalate conflict by using logic, rationalization, and explanations. But how do we solve it? Think of a child that's crying. The child is crying because it's upset. And it's upset because it thinks it has been traumatized. Because the child is ruled by fear. But aren't we all? Don't we all suffer from some little irrationality that sometimes threatens to completely take over our lives? Some people are afraid of opening their mail because there might be bad news. But there might also be good news. Some people are afraid of speaking in public because people might hate them. But people might also like them, especially if the speech is kept short and one gets to the point. Such fears can grow and grow completely out of proportion. Look at someone's nose. If you keep looking at it, it will grow and grow. Completely out of proportion. It's because our minds are elastic. If we focus on something and we go on focusing on it, it will grow and grow. Completely out of proportion. Unless we focus on something else. This a wise parent knows. And what a wise parent does with a crying child is not to use logic. The child is tripping on a fear. Logic wants to explain it away. But to explain is to focus on the fear. And focus on the fear will make it grow. So, the trick is to divert attention. All these parents might look pathetic, waving toys in front of their children. But they're doing the right thing. And anyway, don't all people who try to solve problems look pathetic? Look at inventors. Aren't they the most silly looking people? Until the millions roll in. Then they're cool. Except Bill Gates. If you were in the pants of Bill Gates, wouldn't you say, thank God you can still attract a partner just by being rich? It looks a bit strange here. Back to the subject. Let's say there's a law that you have to be in a relationship. Let's say you're in a relationship. Let's say you're attracted to your partner. And let's say that that attraction is mutual. But now there's conflict. To solve it, we need to divert attention. Sex is to adults what toys are to children. It can divert attention. And by diverting attention, we will solve our problem. Now, you might say that sex is not a real solution, that the problem is still there. But how real was that problem to start with? Is a child that stops crying faking it? And as my grandmother used to say, if it doesn't keep you from eating, it's not a real problem. A lot has been said about the affair between Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky, but maybe not enough. We know that Clinton gave Lewinsky a book of poems. But do we know why? And why was there an affair to begin with? In the mid-90s, the Republican Senator Bob Dole participated in the early experiments with Viagra. Did Clinton know about Dole's experiments with Viagra? After all, he did have access to the CIA. Bob Dole was Clinton's opponent in the 1996 presidential election. Was Clinton afraid that Dole's embracing a pop culture phenomenon like Viagra would be used in the election? Dole was born in Kansas in 1923. Clinton, born 46, and a talented saxophone player, naturally thought that if anyone should be President Pop, it should be him. The affair with Lewinsky started in November 1995, more or less exactly a year before the election. Lewinsky was born 73. But Dole never played the Viagra card. And the affair with Lewinsky was kept secret until it was discovered. by accident in 1998. But Lewinsky did not only have an affair, they were also involved in a professional relationship. Lewinsky was a White House intern and Clinton was president. What do we know about that relationship? Were there any conflicts? Was Clinton's gift Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass an attempt to solve such a conflict? But when you're 22 and a member of the MTV generation, what can a book of poems do? Instead, Clinton brought to politics a way of solving conflict that until then had been restricted to the private sphere. And now, Hillary, as American Secretary of State, can use this invention, this new way of solving conflict on the international arena. But what can we do in our little part of the world? Let me first nail one thing down. There's only politics on the extreme right and the extreme left. If we ask the left what they're about, they'll say, we're about justice and equal opportunity for all, which is fine. Apart from that, you can be in doubt about how it will be realized. I'm an artist. The friends I have are artists too. It's the only people where I can hope for some understanding. All my artist friends vote for the left, and that makes me a little bit worried. Because artists are so interested in problems that they forget to solve them. And I'm worried that that's the reason why they vote for the left. The right used to be about fighting communism, and especially communists. But since communism abolished itself, it had to look for something else to fight. They found it in foreigners, and especially foreigners from the Middle East and Africa. By elevating their own culture above all others, they get their voters to behave like football fans. And if your intellectual capacity is limited, understanding other cultures than your own might seem a little bit difficult. These people go on and on about immigration. They're just like lefty artists. They suffer from a problem fixation. These people say they want an open debate about immigration. But they don't mean it. What they want is to behave like racist pigs and call it politics. Here tonight, I have the pleasure to address a group of great writers and poets. You develop language, you develop art, and you investigate problems. But maybe, sometimes, you feel the urge to do something real. And when I use that word, I hope it's received in the right spirit. But what can we do? When someone is suffering from a mental fixation, sometimes a sudden shock can get you out of it. And what I suggest that we do with these people is to have sex with them. Sexual intercourse. And not just a little sex, but the whole ABC. I'm not saying it will work, but it might work. Maybe sex with an attractive and intelligent person, serious sex, could work. I know it's a lot to ask. But imagine you do it for your country. Imagine you do it for future generations. Imagine a young teenager in the year 2030 being able to say, before I was born, this country was infested by racism. But my parents and their generation rose to the occasion and fucked their brains out. But please use contraceptives. Because we don't want any strange experiments of interbreeding with lefty artists and the extreme right. And with that plead, I now like to leave you with the final words of Bill Clinton's installation speech from 1993. We've heard a call for service in the valley. We've heard the trumpet. We've changed the guards. And now, each in our own way, with God's help, we must answer the call. Thank you.
Spoken like a true statesman. Well,